online who hate me, who would like to cancel me, who would like to see me either burn in hell, as I have told, or disappear off the face of the earth. And I'm not going anywhere.
Ruby Frankie, the once famous YouTube mom, now accused of abusing her own children, claimed that her family was being harassed by angry followers, and her family hired a private investigator. We sit down with that PI, David Corrington, to understand what happened. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. You've likely heard about the Ruby Frankie case by now, especially if you've been following us here on Sidebar. The Utah mom of 6 faces multiple felony child abuse charges, and this came after her 12-year-old son escaped a residence belonging to Frankie's business partner, Jody Hildebrand. He was emaciated, he had open wounds, and after he ran to a neighbor's house who called 911, authorities discovered the boy's 10-year-old sister in Hildebrand's home as well, in very similar condition. There was evidence to suggest that the boy had been tied down as well. So Hildebrand and Frankie, they were taken into custody. They were both charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. By the way, each count carries up to 15 years in prison. And 2 of her other children were found by authorities in the care of a colleague of Frankie's. They were taken into state custody. The couple's other 2 children are adult children. But let's back up a second. So back in 2015, Ruby and her husband, Kevin, they started a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. And the devout Mormon couple chronicled their family's lives online. Frankie often gave advice about parenting and childcare, homeschooling, and marriage. But some of her parenting techniques seemed to a lot of people to go too far. And in 2020, the 8 Passengers channel posted a video of Frankie's then 15-year-old son talking about a punishment he had to deal with.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October. My room back like 2 weeks ago. Oh, I'll give you the reason why I lost my bedroom. I think so. I think this is the reason. At least this is the reason that's been in my head. So pretty funny, but now I look back, I mean, it's pretty depressing.
No, we never told our viewers.
That I woke Russell up at 2 in the morning and told him that we're going to Disneyland and he has to pack. And he got up and made his bed all neatly and then packed all his clothes in a suitcase. And then he walked out the door and I'm like, Russell, he was like, what? And he's all happy. Has his sunglasses on. And I was like, we're not going to Disneyland. And he started crying and hitting me. And then he went back to bed in tears. And then...
So that was not the reason you lost your room, but that was...
Well, the other reason is because I pointed a BB gun at his face.
Pointed a BB gun at his face and hung him on the basketball. basically, Chad...
Like the day I got home, too.
Chad came home from Anasazi and...
Russell was like, I want to try dunking the basketball, and I lifted him up on the rim. And left him there. We shot 3 minutes, and he was just hanging on there.
Do you think it's funny? Because...
And then I walk out.
If you think it's funny, then that was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
It was not funny.
Chad showed that he was not able to manage himself sharing a bedroom with Russell.
So when we moved, the bigger room in the basement was automatically his, and I didn't have a room, but we put one on hold for me.
So a lot of you are like, hey, that's not fair because Chad got the lesser bedroom and Russell got the bigger bedroom. Russell got the big bedroom and Chad got the smaller bedroom. And Russell's bigger bedroom also had a bathroom. But what you guys didn't know was Chad didn't get any room. He didn't get anything. He was sleeping on the floor in the family room.
Now, that video, to our understanding, was later taken down, but viewers who watched it were very concerned. Eventually, a change.org petition was started calling Frankie an abuser. Child Protective Services ended up going to the home to check things out, but the case was eventually closed. Frankie stopped posting to the 8 Passengers channel last year, and YouTube removed it altogether earlier this year, although a reason wasn't given. We want to thank Morgan & Morgan, the largest injury law firm in America, for sponsoring this video. Now, before you say, oh, great, another law firm ad, first of all, how dare you? Don't speak that way of Morgan & Morgan. And second, you don't know what makes them special. Morgan & Morgan has completely modernized the personal injury claim process. They make it super easy for you. How? You submit your claim, you sign contracts, you upload documents, and you talk to your whole legal team all on your phone. Now, if you're injured at work, this isn't about suing your employer. It's about suing your employer's insurance company, which I got to tell you is a huge relief because I love my boss. And you know what? My boss loves me. Honestly, it's sad. Not everyone has our kind of relationship. It's no longer the days of back-to-back meetings and consultations. An attorney is going to review your case with 8 clicks on your phone. That's it. Now you might be saying, sounds pretty expensive, right? Well, here's the kicker. There's no upfront fee. No, you only pay them if you win. So it's no wonder over 3 million people call them every year. So if you're injured, you can submit a claim at www.forthepeople.com/law&crime or by dialing pound law. That's pound 529 on your phone. Now, according to a report from People magazine, when the Frankie's viewers seemingly started to turn on them, the family was getting some threats or harassment. So Kevin Franke hired David Corrington, a private investigator and retired special agent with the Department of Homeland Security, hired him back in 2020. And Corrington told People magazine that members of the family were receiving kinds of threats and harassment, and someone even showed up in the middle of the night. Well, David Corrington joins me right now to talk about what he found. David, thank you so much for coming here on Sidebar. We appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Now, my understanding is you're in the public sector now, but you were hired as a private investigator for the Frankies a few years ago. How did you first get linked up with them?
So actually, I was referred to them by, I had done several other stalking threat type cases through several other platforms or individuals that were influencers or high profile YouTubers that I'd also received several threats and those type of things. So that I had never met nor known them before. So this was the first time when they called me that I had spoke to them and learned of their situation.
So you didn't know anything about their YouTube channel or anything like that?
Never heard of 8 Passengers before they called me. So
okay. And so you meet them. What did you think of them when you first met them?
So it was most of my interaction was actually with Kevin.
Okay.
And genuinely, Kevin was concerned about the safety of his family. So that was really the focus of my case initially, was to try and understand not only who was making the threats, but kind of try and dig into maybe the why they were making the threats.
What was your impression of Kevin when you first met him?
Seemed like, genuinely nice guy. I felt like he was genuinely concerned for the safety of his family, which clearly he was willing to pay money. He was frustrated with law enforcement, didn't feel like they were doing enough to take it seriously, which is why he reached out to me to see if I could help maybe get that process rolling a little bit quicker.
So did you have any communication with Ruby Frankie? I know you said it was mostly with Kevin, but did you speak with her at all?
So there was one of the initial conversations was with her and Kevin, but most of my interactions after that was just with Kevin.
What about the kids? Did you have an opportunity to meet them, to talk to them at all?
No, I actually had tried to set up a meeting inside the home, and Kevin said he didn't want to do that. So we just kept everything over the phone.
Did he say why he didn't want you to come to the home?
No, he didn't.
Let's talk about some of these threats. What kind of threats are we talking about here?
Well, there were, several. We had some individuals that were basically, it was more of a harassment where they were signing up subscriptions in their name, pretending to be Ruby and Kevin. And so then they were being inundated with these emails or phone calls saying, hey, thanks for signing up or joining up. Then there was the individual that rang the doorbell in the middle of the night, which we were able to capture on camera. And we were actually able to capture the vehicle, but no license plates, and we weren't able to identify them.
Okay, a couple of things there. Let's go back to so you're saying people in their name would subscribe them to like random websites and services, and then the real Frankies would get inundated with calls and emails?
Exactly.
Did you ever find out who those people were or why they were doing it?
So I was able to trace the IP addresses back, and working with law enforcement, I basically provided my entire report to them. Being that I'm no longer in law enforcement, I don't have subpoena powers and have limitations as a private investigator of what you can and can't do. So I had encouraged them to subpoena these companies to be able to identify where these IP addresses were coming from. I do not know. They were not super forthcoming in terms of what they were doing on their investigation, but I did receive information towards the end that the district attorney's office had declined to prosecute the case. And that's really how we ended it, is I let the Frankies know that, listen, I've done everything that I can at this point to basically gather and provide the information. I did go over some safety, security issues, things that they could do additionally to protect their family.
What kind of what kind of subscriptions were they signing them up for?
Just random things, and sorry, this happened a few years ago. So
yeah, was one of them for plastic surgery?
That actually does sound very familiar.
Okay.
It was like that. Just, I think just people that were just trying to, again, that's more in that harassment, right, element.
Right.
Which, I've actually had other clients experience similar things like that, where they'll just, people will show up at their house, saying, hey, I'm ready to get a quote, or, those type of things. And it's, basically falls in the harassment category.
What about emails or angry text messages from people? Were they receiving those as well?
Yeah, I mean, once I got into the case, I wanted to understand what was making everybody so angry. So right. I did start reviewing all of the video content that they were posting. And, there was a lot of people out there alleging that, some of what they were posting, was child abuse and was wrong. And they even had this petition online that they were signing to get CPS involved. And so, there was a lot of that out there. And so that kind of gave me a little bit more context as to, what was garnering some of this anger towards them.
Did you ever, first of all, what did you think of it, their videos? And did you ever confront either Kevin or Ruby about these videos and what was going on?
I mean, personally, I didn't agree with the parenting styles that I saw in there. And I did tell Kevin, I said, listen, some of the stuff that you're posting, as you're sure you're aware, is part of the issue here that's causing, some of the anger and the threats. There's a fine line as a private investigator of, obviously, I'm not going to tell him how to run his business or do that. I do want to make clear, though, that, during the entire course of my investigation, I had no insider idea that there was truly any abuse of the children going on. Had no contact with them. I did drive outside of the home because I was trying to kind of do an evaluation from a physical security standpoint, but was not aware clearly of everything that's coming out now. And personally, I wasn't a big fan of the videos. I didn't agree with them. But my focus and role of what they hired me for was clearly to protect the family and to identify who was threatening their family.
When you told Kevin that these videos might be creating this danger, what did he respond to that?
If I recall, there wasn't a lot of, I think he acknowledged it, but there wasn't really an in-depth conversation about the content itself. I just wanted to hear Kevin, in my opinion, that, this was the reason why I felt they were receiving a lot of these threats, was the controversial aspects of some of the videos that they were posting.
I mentioned text messages. I mean, did they receive angry text messages? Did they receive phone calls from strangers? And if so, any idea how people got their contact information, or is this not true? They didn't receive this.
I don't recall in terms of whether they were receiving text messages or phone calls, but it's also very easy to get phone numbers nowadays online, and that's not that difficult to do.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this: you mentioned the guy, the person who showed up in the middle of the night at their door. Walk us through what this person was dressed like, what you saw. Did they say anything? I mean, what was the circumstances of that?
So they were dressed in a sweatshirt that was basically, wrapped tightly around their face with really big glasses, so it kind of disguised them. It appeared to me in the video that it was a female, and I'd have to say maybe in their late 20s. And then all they did was ring the doorbell, and then run back to the car and drive away.
What made you think that was concerning or threatening? Besides wrapping the clothing over the face, any other indication that this person might have been a danger?
It just was in conjunction with some of the other threats that they were receiving, so it was kind of more of a timing issue, versus a prank, right, in the middle of the night with the kids. But again, not knowing who that person was, or it was just a different element of concern,
right?
Just more from a timing perspective.
So just to clarify, you're saying, was anybody ever identified as threatening or harassing the Frankies? Was any no charges were ever brought? Was anybody identified where charges ever brought, or no?
Yeah, that I'll have to defer to the police department. I had presented them all the evidence, given them the IP addresses. Had they subpoenaed the company records, they would have been able to identify who those were, and I don't know if that ever happened.
Why do you think Kevin Frankie said to you, and maybe you saw it yourself, that the police were not that helpful to them?
So, in talking with the detective at the time, I recall that in my opinion, I felt that they were actively working the case. I don't think that they ignored it. I just think that sometimes they had to prioritize what they felt were more higher priority cases in terms of how quickly they could do their investigations. I think that my role in coming in maybe helped spur things a little bit quicker through the process, but ultimately the district attorney is the one that decides whether or not to pursue charges, not law enforcement. Right. And that was how that ended.
You had mentioned you had never seen any abuse, any indications of it. You hadn't really been in the house. You didn't get a chance to even speak to the kids. Were you around when the whole issue with the Child Protective Services was happening, when police were coming to the house at all to find out what was going on with the family and the kids?
No, and I actually was not aware of any of that during the course of my investigation. Law enforcement also had never mentioned that to me.
Talking about the current case against Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrand, have you been contacted by law enforcement?
I have not, no.
When this broke about this, what was your initial reaction?
I mean, probably like most, extremely disturbed, as you listen to that 911 call and how emotional that man felt. I think it probably, everybody felt some heartstrings pulling for those kids and what they were enduring. And then it obviously caused me to go back to then, I did a lot of these cases, right? So at the time, and there wasn't anything really major that stuck out, but I did go back, read some of the case notes, and really, go back and understand, were there things there that maybe would have led to that? And the only thing that I could think of were, again, those videos that I saw that, again, I found a little troubling. I didn't agree with, but I personally didn't feel what I was seeing on the video would meet the legal elements of what would be considered child abuse, even though I didn't agree with the parenting styles that they were doing.
Looking back, the fact that they didn't allow you in the home to see the kids, what do you think about that now?
Yeah, when I paused on that, I did at the time think that was a little odd, because I would typically meet in person with clients. So I did find that a little odd, but at the time, I guess I didn't. I just felt that maybe he was a private person and, was in the public eye. And so I kind of respected that element of it.
And you never got a sense about, I mean, did you think it was strange that your contact was only with Kevin and not with Ruby?
I mean, at the time, it's not uncommon to just have one spouse take the role and dealing with a particular case. So I didn't think it was too, I didn't think it was too strange. I can legitimately say that I felt that Kevin was truly concerned for the safety and well-being of his family in my conversations with him, and that was my initial thoughts and feelings about it.
Well, I like your perspective then, because it was a few weeks ago that we had the opportunity to interview Kevin Frankie's attorney, and his attorney said that Kevin had no idea that this abuse was happening. He said that Kevin hadn't even been in the home, that he and Ruby agreed that he shouldn't see the children. They had been separated for 13 months. I was questioning him. How is it possible that Kevin didn't even speak to his children for that long and didn't know what was going on? What's your opinion after knowing Kevin Frankie and speaking with him and working with him about this idea that he had no idea what was going on and he was separated from his wife and didn't even have the opportunity to speak to his kids about what was happening?
Well, that's a tough one, right? Because there's only three people that really know what happened. That's Kevin, his wife, and the children. So it's
let's be fair. I mean, he's not been criminally charged, and he wasn't there at the crime scene. It was Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrand. It seems that he wasn't living with them, but it's so interesting to me that he was separated for this amount of time. There was an issue in the family, and yet he didn't know what was happening to his kids for this amount of time. That's the part that just, I think, rubs some people the wrong way.
And I understand that. I mean, he was very involved in the children's lives. So it would be hard for me to understand as well, that he wasn't aware of some of the issues that might have been going on there. And of course, not privy to why the separation happened or any of that. I haven't spoken to Kevin since the case ended. Or Ruby. So, it's obviously, it does pose a lot of questions and concerns out there for sure. For me personally, it's a very troubling case, just being a father myself. Having the thought of any children, going through that level or kind of abuse is horrendous. And, if it's proven to be true, I feel like accountability to the fullest extent of the law needs to be handed out. I mean, that's my personal feeling on that.
Yeah, and we know that he is also seeking custody of his 4 young children, the 2 adults. He has 2 adult children, but he was seeking custody of his 4 young children. When you were working with them, did you ever speak to neighbors, friends, family members, anybody that knew about the Frankies, anybody that told you anything about them that maybe looking back, you think, that's a little concerning?
No, in this case, I didn't find any relevance to neighbors or friends. It was really just trying to identify who the individuals were that were harassing and making threats, and to really get law enforcement a little more engaged in the investigation of it.
Right.
That was really my focus of the case. So I did not talk to anyone else on that.
David Corrington, he played a very interesting role in this story, and appreciate you taking the time and coming here on Sidebar to talk a little bit more about it. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, everybody. That's all we have for you here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.